Time now for Inside Out as we welcome in SNY MLB Insider Andy Martino. And now, Andy, I know that throughout this search you have warned us not to overreact to this name or that name. But last week it certainly appeared that this was Adam Cromie's job to lose. So how did Billy Eppler leapfrog him?
I can tell you exactly, Eamon. It was. That was legit that Cromie was the front runner when I was out and most of the industry was out in Carlsbad, California at the GM meetings. And he's an impressive guy, Cromie, and he didn't do anything to lose the job. But ultimately, I don't think he could make up for his experience gap. A well-regarded assistant GM who then went on to a law career. But Billy Eppler, who will be the next Mets general manager, has done that job. And what that means in a day-to-day workflow is he has been a manager of departments, multiple departments, pro scouting, amateur scouting, international scouting, analytics. The way a baseball structure works is that each of those departments has a head, and the GM or president of baseball operations, same thing in most organizations, oversees all of that. So that's what Eppler has done, and that's what impressed the Mets and intrigued the Mets. Late last week, they started digging on him more aggressively, doing more homework on him, asking around, and then Eppler had a meeting with Steve Cohen over the weekend, which was said by multiple parties to be a terrific meeting. Sense of connection was felt there. Now the Mets are prepared to make Eppler the head of their baseball operations, which means he'll have the final say in baseball matters.
Now, there was so much focus on who didn't want this job that Sandy Alderson, of course, publicly had to acknowledge the reluctance of candidates to come to New York City. So how did Eppler's familiarity with this market help his candidacy?
Well, it certainly helped in that he learned under Brian Cashman. And, however Yankees fans go up and down on their emotions about Cashman, inside the industry, the kind of executives who make hires, including Steve Cohen, certainly, and Sandy Alderson, regard Cashman as probably the most respected executive in the game. So a mentorship under him and a strong recommendation from Cashman, which I know that Eppler got, outweighs Eppler's 5 years as Angels GM in which they didn't have a winning record. The Mets had questions about how that went in Los Angeles. Those are answered through the interview process, and really through that recommendation from Cashman, which, as I said, carries a lot of weight.
Now, Andy, a theory that started to emerge last week is that the Mets are still playing the waiting game with David Stearns and his contract that expires with the Brewers after next season. How does the hiring of Eppler impact a possible pursuit of Stearns down the road?
It's so early to say, Eamon. I mean, that is true that there's been times when Steve Cohen has had an idea of David Stearns, but Cohen and Stearns have literally never spoken to each other. They could get in a room and it doesn't fit. You never know. So to say that that's a sure thing is way, not that you are, and not that any reports did, but that's not something we should put in ink that Stearns could come. Now, I've heard that Stearns was interested in coming to the Mets. He can't because of his contract. And, of course, the Mets are interested in him. And to the final piece of that, to your question, Eamon, Eppler and Stearns are good friends. So that'll continue to be a question. It'll continue to be a conversation. But if the Mets are winning in a year or two and there doesn't feel like an organic need to bring in another top executive, maybe the talk of that calms down. We'll see how it goes.